Welcome to the Mind Body Weight Loss Summit. I'm John Gabriel, author and creator of the Gabriel Method, a diet-free approach to sustained weight loss. And I'm very pleased today to be joined by Jonathan Bailor, who will be sharing his knowledge about the calorie myth. Jonathan Bailor is an author and the founder of SaneSolution.com, a nutrition and exercise expert and former personal trainer who specializes in using modern science and technology to simplify health. Bailor has collaborated with top scientists for more than 10 years, analyzing over 1,300 studies, and garnered endorsements by doctors and scientists from Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins, and UCLA. Bailor serves as the CEO of the wellness technology company Yapti. He authored the internationally best-selling book, The Calorie Myth, hosts a popular syndicated health radio show, and blogs on Huffington Post. Additionally, Bailor has registered over 25 patents and serves as the senior program manager at Microsoft. As you're listening today, you can learn more about Jonathan Bailor and his work at SaneSolutions.com. So Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit, for starters, about calories and what you mean when you say the calorie myth.
There's a couple sub-myths, but the uber calorie myth is really as simple as saying that we should focus on calories. It's not that calories don't exist and that calories are completely irrelevant. It's just that calories are a teeny tiny, one could argue almost irrelevant piece of this much bigger puzzle, as you talk about in your work, John. And the most nefarious of the calorie myths are, and we see this a lot, at least in the United States, is this idea that the number of calories in something determines really anything of use, right? If I were to just tell you, this is going to get a little bit metaphysical, but if I were to just say to you, I'm going to eat 300 calories, is that good or bad? It's a bit like, I'm going to put on an outfit. Does that outfit look good or bad?
Right.
I don't know. What type of outfit is it? Where are you going? What are the goals of your outfit? So people want to focus on calories, or they're told to focus on calories as a sole arbiter, or as really a value judgment. And because of that, you can have corporations, you can have fast food chains calling things healthy simply because they've shrunk the serving size and dropped the number of calories, which otherwise we would consider to be addictive and toxic. But because we have this calorie mythology, I can take pink slime and trans fats and refined carbohydrates and just serve you very few calories worth of them, and then call it not only a good deal, but also a healthy choice.
Right. So the calorie myth basically comes from this idea that you eat less and exercise more and you're going to lose weight. How did that evolve? How did that become the weight loss convention?
It's intuitive. Weight loss has not been perceived as a scientific or medical issue that we should investigate for the past 50 years. It's really been treated as a moral failing, which is incredibly sad, because imagine if we considered, for example, diabetes to just be a moral failing, and that people should try harder to regulate their blood sugar, right? People would die just like they died at the turn of the 20th century before we had discovered the underlying causes of diabetes. People would just die, horrible deaths from diabetes. Now, of course, we understand the underlying causes. The treatment is a little bit sketchy, but we understand the underlying causes, and because of that, we can attack them scientifically and come up with solutions to those problems. Right now, the vast majority of the mainstream, both individuals and also professionals, simply perceives obesity as a moral weakness and just it's a matter of you need to try harder to regulate the amount of energy you're taking in and the amount of energy you're burning off, not recognizing that despite the amount of effort you put in, your body will counterbalance whatever you're doing, thus making it nearly impossible to win that battle. So it's a bit like telling a heroin addict, just try harder to not be addicted to heroin. It's really not an effort problem. We need to go a level deeper.
It's almost another analogy is like telling someone who has asthma to try harder to breathe.
Exactly.
Basically. What I think the calories in, calories out paradigm does is it fails to look at obesity as what it is, and what you and I both know it is a legitimate metabolic condition. And when you have this legitimate metabolic condition, your body's going to force you to hold on to weight, and rather than try to fight it, which is what the calories in type of thing. Basically, the calories in, calories out myth, it puts it all on the person and says it's your fault because you're weak and lazy and not trying hard. But the reality is there's so many hormonal effects that can cause you to gain weight, and we're ignoring all of those by having it just be eat less, exercise more. Is that right?
It's right, and it's unfortunate because I think a lot of what we see happen is that people are, this is a general human failing. There's a lot of stereotypes and generalizations going on here. Let's be very clear. In the States, of the 70% of people who are overweight, I bet about 5% of that 70% are just pounding sodas and eating pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Like, clearly, there's a lot of calories going in, not a lot of calories coming out. And if all you did was saw those people, then you would say, oh my gosh, clearly this is just about gluttony and sloth. What you and I are doing and what the medical community is starting to do is to say, let's look at really not the exception, but the norm, which is someone who eats like everyone else. It's called the standard Western diet for a reason. Basically, everybody eats it, but not everyone becomes overweight or obese because of it. I like to use the analogy of a low-income elementary school. So let's say you walk into a low-income elementary school where all of the children are eating basically the exact same breakfasts and lunches because they're all being provided to them by the school. You'll notice that all of the kids play video games. All of the kids are not quote-unquote physically active enough. It's not as if there's 30% of the kids sitting in the corner eating kale and seltzer water and running on a treadmill, whereas 70% of them are over here playing video games and eating ding-dongs and ho-hos. They're all playing video games. They're all eating ding-dongs and ho-hos, but only some of them are becoming overweight because of that. And once you start to say, wow, that's a really interesting scientific problem to solve. What's going on? What are the differences in those people's bodies? And what does that tell us about this underlying metabolic condition? A bit like asking the question, why is it that some people can smoke cigarettes for 90 years and never get lung cancer? That's a really interesting question to ask, but no one is asking those kind of questions.
Yeah. So would you say that focusing on calories as the main culprit in weight leads to feelings of guilt and failure, and when we're not addressing the real metabolic causes and we're not losing that weight that way, we can't help but feel guilty, like it's because it's ingrained to feel like it's our fault, we're doing something wrong here.
That's exactly right, John, and I think there is a very powerful, there's the first step, and you do this very well in your work, is helping to change our mindset around this. And I like to use metaphors for doing that. And one thing I want to make very clear is, again, it's not that there isn't an overabundance of energy in the state of fat accumulation. Like that is true, right? You can't make something from nothing. So there has to be an overabundance of energy, but that doesn't mean you're eating too much. It can mean a lot of other things. And let me just really quickly unpack just how meaningless and how, once you can see how absurd the advice to just eat less and exercise more is, the more it might not bother you, because it's truly absurd, right? If someone made fun of you for thinking that 1 + 1 = 2, you wouldn't feel bad because you'd say, well, other person, you're a fool. I know 1 + 1 = 2. I'm not going to feel bad. So imagine that someone, again, is telling you, you just need to eat less and exercise more. Now imagine a press conference after an athletic event. Any athletic event in the world. I'm in the United States, so let's say American football. And let's say that the team we all like lost. And there's a press conference after the game or after the match, and the reporters ask the coach. This is a very important game. So they ask the coach, they say, "Coach, what happened? Why did you lose?" The coach looks down. Looks like he's got some brilliant answer coming up, and he says, all right, guys, here's the situation. Let me explain this to you. We didn't score enough, and the other team scored too much. Right? Now, clearly, everyone in the audience would think the coach had fallen off his rocker, because we know by definition, if you lose the game, it's because you scored too few points and the other team scored too many points. But what we're actually asking is, why did that happen? Yeah. And what can be done about it in the future, right? Mm-hmm. If the coach then went to practice the next day and told the players, guys, here's the problem. All right, seriously, I've been doing this for a long time. I have a degree in coaching, and I've been doing this for 40 years. We need to score more points and prevent the other team from scoring as many points. Come on, guys, get it together, right? That's not helping anybody, and it's just absurd.
Yeah. But the traditional medical answer to that that follows the paradigm of calories in, calories out would say, well, it's just because you're not trying hard enough.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And we both know that that's not the answer. Now that you've done an amazing job in your work and your research of uncovering the actual facts that there's so much more going on hormonally with the type of foods you eat and with the type of stress you have and digestion issues and all these different things, that's really what's causing the hormonal effects that make you want to eat more. Just to say, just eat less, it doesn't work if you're hungry all the time. And for me personally, I lived in a body that was hungry all the time. I know what that's like. And now I live in a body that's not hungry all the time. So I know it's not about willpower and discipline. It's about changing your body on a hormonal level. And one of the things I like in your book you talk about is how you explain how you can eat more of the right kind of foods and exercise less, but do the right type of exercise and actually change your body on a hormonal level and cause weight loss. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
When we start to see, so let's talk about food first, then we'll talk about exercise. When we start to see food as not a mechanism to get calories into the body, but as a source of information for your body. I think Barry Sears was one of the first people in the popular literature to describe food as just purely information. And when you eat certain food, it communicates certain signals to your body. So imagine food's information, and imagine that certain food tells your body, heal, reduce inflammation in the brain, get my hormone levels in check, grow healthy bacteria in my gut, boost my energy levels. Yeah. If food communicates that information, then it would seem to make sense that eating more of it would help you to balance out those hormones more. If food is almost quelching a fire inside your body, if it's like water to that fire, then eating more of it makes a lot of sense. The only reason it even seems counterintuitive right out of the gate is because we have been so jaded by this calorie mythology, which equates food to calories, which equates calories to bad, which equals food equals bad, which is of course terrible. Food is glorious if it's the right types of food, right? So from a very high level, it's just eating more of the healing types of foods is going to heal you faster than if you just ate less of everything.
Right. I love that analogy. I've never heard it before. I think it's great that food is communicating a message. And really what you're saying, when the food is communicating the message of reduce inflammation, improve bacteria gut, become more sensitive to hormones like insulin and leptin, when it's communicating that message, and in essence it's saying, the message is lose weight and get fit. Mm-hmm. And when it's communicating the opposite message, it's saying get fat. And it's a very different way to look at food than just, oh, this has 4 calories per gram or this has 9 calories per gram. This is a message it's communicating, and I love that. I love looking at it that way. That's a really powerful way to do it. And I'm wondering if we can look at some of the messages, like what's the difference in the message that foods that are like real, whole, live plants and healthy proteins, healthy fats, as opposed to man-made, refined starches, sugars, processed foods. What's the difference in those messages?
One of the most basic differences, and if we have time, we can certainly get more advanced, is this is satisfying. Yeah. Like, this is fulfilling hunger. This is one of the funniest ones and the most paradigm shifting ones, because there's this thing called the snack pack, which is at least very popular in the United States, these 100-calorie snack packs. Yeah. And if you think about why these are marketed as if, so imagine you're hungry, and imagine that your brain knows what it's doing. Crazy, I know. That your brain is hungry because it needs energy, right? Yeah. And let's say it needs 400 calories worth of energy, because calories are a unit of energy. So we're told by the mainstream media, well, if you just eat a 100-calorie snack pack, you can somehow trick your brain into only desiring 100 calories of energy. Now that's bunk. You're going to be hungry until your body can get access to the amount of energy you need to live. Makes sense. Just like your car will not run until you put fuel in the gas tank. But when you eat whole, healthy, what I call sane foods, let's say you ate a big breakfast. Let's say you eat 1,000 calories at breakfast. People will be like, oh, you're gonna become fat. No, you're not. You're just gonna eat fewer calories later. Because food, real food, satiates you. If you eat more now, you'll eat less later. If you eat less later, you eat more now, yada, yada, yada. Whereas non-food makes you hungrier, and that's a fact. I
experience that all the time now, because most of the food I eat is not man-made. It's all real food. It's all very nourishing food. And there are days, like the other day, I just was hungry all day, and I'm sure I ate 2 or 3 times what people would say I'm supposed to eat. I'm sure of it. And the next day, I just, like, it was like 3 o'clock and I hadn't eaten anything. I barely had noshed. It's just like my body compensated because it wants to be healthy and fit right now. It's doing the accounting. I always say, when your body wants to be fit, you just let it do the accounting. And the way to get your body to be fit, what you're showing in your book and we're communicating our message, is to eat foods that nourish your body. And when you're eating foods that are truly nourishing your body, you're not hungry, your body doesn't want to store fat, and it's not creating all these hormonal messages. Is that right?
That's exactly right, John. I lost you a little bit there for a second, so I'll try. Hopefully, my answer will make sense. But yeah, that is really the key. And the specific word I use in my work, and that is used in the research literature to describe this, is called satiety, or feeling satisfied.
Yeah.
And what's cool about this is, like, this is not woo-woo. This is not my belief. This is not your belief. There are really rigorous, double-blind trials done where you take one group of people and you feed them calories with higher satiety or foods with higher satiety. You feed another group foods with lower satiety, and you see just stark differences in the amount of food people eat naturally to satisfy themselves. And you can even do it in animal models to eliminate any kind of emotional components and just look at what does a mammalian brain do. And you feed rodents, for example, fructose, and you find that not only does it not satisfy them, but it actually makes them hungrier. So imagine a world where you're criticized for eating too much while simultaneously being told to eat calories that actually make you hungrier. Yeah. That's a tough position to be in.
Yeah. So just as a general rule, real foods are the ones that nourish you and tell your body to not eat as much because they're giving you what you really need. Is that fair to just put that in a nutshell like that?
Yeah, I usually simplify it in just saying it's stuff you could find directly in nature. And there's certainly some additional nuance we could put on that. I mean, you could find snake venom directly in nature, and tobacco directly in nature. But from a high level, there's no such thing as a bread bush or a Cheerios tree. But you find plants and animals in nature all the time, and if you eat that, you'll be good to go. Exactly.
Let's talk about the exercise myth a little bit. This idea that you got to exercise an hour a day, 7 days a week, cardio, straight line, blah, blah, blah. As opposed to some of the latest research that's out there, that if you exercise just real short term, high intensity with lots of rest, you're actually able to lose much more weight. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
The same underlying problem exists for exercise theory as does for eating theory, in the sense that if you believe what you've been told, that it's all about calories, well, then doing a lot of exercise makes sense, because the goal of exercise is to burn a lot of calories while you're exercising. So with a lot of this stuff, it makes sense to speak in terms of like formal logic. There is the argument valid, and is the premise sound? Like, the argument is valid. It's a valid argument to say
it's the premise. Yeah.
It's the premise that's flawed, right? So the premise is flawed. It's not about burning calories. It's about changing the hormonal milieu in your body. And the only way to do that is by doing high intensity, hopefully lower impact, just for safety purposes, activity. And then once we agree with that, once we agree, for example, that the more muscle fibers you activate, the greater the hormonal response, which is not controversial. And then we understand that the only way you activate more muscle fibers is not doing more exercise, it's doing more intense exercise. And then we understand that the more intense the exercise, the more energy it uses. Just like if you drive your car at 200 miles an hour, it's going to use your fuel up faster than if you drive it at 20 miles an hour. Then we end up at this logical conclusion, which is basically, if you're exercising optimally, you can't do a lot of exercise, because the exercise you're doing will use up your energy so quickly that it's self-limiting.
Right, and it takes when you do that type of high intensity exercise, it takes a couple of days for the muscle to rebuild itself. And if you're not letting the muscle to rebuild itself, you're going to create a chronic stress, which is going to cause weight gain also. So this idea that you have to do it every day is also flawed. Not only does it have to be shorter duration, but it has to have longer rest periods. Is that correct?
It's exactly right, and there's a irony and a really cool way to think of that. So the irony first, you see these workout DVDs that talk about how intense they are, and then they follow up and say that you do them 60 minutes a day, 6 days a week. I don't know about you, but if an exercise is, try to squat your body weight for 60 minutes, 6 days a week. Ain't gonna happen, right? So it's not intense if you can do it every day. So the second thing is when we talk about needing time for your body to recover. So by way of analogy, think of a growing child and just how much they need to eat and why do they need to eat that much. Or even a pregnant woman, she needs to eat more because she's actually building a human. So small people are literally building new people. They're getting bigger. A pregnant woman is actually building another person. When you do intense, safe exercise, you're building yourself. You are building new tissue in your body. Could you imagine how much energy it takes to actually build new you?
Yeah.
And so you can just see, even if we start to play the calorie game, a really strong argument can actually be made for using this type of exercise to burn more calories long term. But we're not playing that game. It's just an interesting side note.
Yeah. Also, I know there's one thing I just want to mention that, we have this idea that healthy foods are not convenient foods. All the convenient foods are all the junk foods, and we can't get healthy foods in a convenient way. We gotta go to a farmer's market, and we gotta do all kinds of preparations like dehydrating. It takes hours and hours and all this kind of stuff. And I know that you've got some good, fast, easy, convenient foods and recipes. And I'm wondering if you can kind of share some of the things that you have that are not only convenient and fast, but also healthy.
The most convenient source of calories I've ever found. So I'm going to give a quick disclaimer. So vegetables are, I think, the most challenging thing for most people. And I think using smoothies and soups are the best way to do that. Yeah. I can give you a quick smoothie recipe, but just in terms of getting energy in your body, I know a lot of people who are shifting to a more sane lifestyle just say, well, if I don't eat starches and sugar, where am I going to get my energy from? You can put a day's worth of energy in your pocket with macadamia nuts. I mean, nuts and seeds.
Well, there's another way to think of it, if you don't mind me saying, John, and that is that where are you going to get energy? Well, you're carrying energy. You're carrying months and months of energy. The only problem is we've lost the ability to burn fat. Exactly. And when you lose the ability to burn fat, then you have to keep eating and eating and eating these processed foods that are causing us to lose the ability to burn fat. And it's like, to me, it's like putting money into a bank account that's frozen. You just keep depositing and depositing, you can't take any out. When you start eating more real foods, you regain the ability to burn fat, and then you have all the energy in the world on your body, and it's always at your disposal because you can just keep burning fat whenever you need energy.
That's one of those paradigm shifting points for people, I think, John, which is take someone who is morbidly overweight. So this is not like a societal thing. It's someone who weighs, let's say, 500 pounds. And their frames would healthfully support 200 pounds. So they have 300 pounds of surplus fat on their body. The fact that that person ever gets hungry, doesn't that make you want to stop and think?
Well, that was my whole message. I mean, I lived through that, right? So I had 200 pounds of excess fat on me. I'm chronically hungry all the time. And what I learned was I'd lost the ability to burn fat. And when you lose the ability to burn fat, you are hungry all the time because it's like you always have to get your energy from an external source. But and that's the biggest flaw in the calories in, calories out paradigm. Everybody goes on a diet and nobody even questions, do I even have the ability to burn fat? And so for most of us, what happens is we get insulin resistance, our insulin levels get elevated. Insulin stops your body from burning fat. It stops the hormones that burn fat from getting secreted into your bloodstream. You literally lose the ability to burn fat, and a diet's not going to solve that problem. What's going to solve that problem is everything you talk about, which is changing your body on a hormonal level. And then once you do that, and that's why for me, once I did that, losing 200 pounds was the easiest thing in the world for me because once my body regained the ability to burn fat, I just wasn't hungry and the weight was just coming off and coming off and coming off. So I think that's the biggest thing that people just in this calories in, calories out that they're missing is when you're hormonally, when there's a problem that's causing you to gain weight from a hormonal basis, you have lost the ability to burn fat. And I don't care how much you cut your calories. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've worked with people that are eating next to nothing and still not losing weight.
That's exactly right, John. And this actually got cut from the manuscript of the Calorie Myth book. But this need versus ability distinction, I jokingly said, I wear very strong prescriptions. I have terrible vision. I have contacts in right now. I'm also losing my hair right here, okay? I need to have better vision and I need to grow this hair back. But me needing that, it doesn't matter. My body doesn't have the ability. My body doesn't have the ability to just make my eyes see better and has lost the ability to grow hair right here. And if I hadn't shaved, you'd see I'd lost the ability to grow hair here too. The same thing can apply to other aspects of your body. If you've lost the ability to burn fat, just like you're saying, you can cut calories to your blue in the face. All it's going to do is make you tired and sad. And in fact, if you look at rodent studies,
your metabolism.
Well, and John, if there are rodent studies, and this is shocking, there are rodent studies where they'll genetically engineer rodents to really lose the ability to burn fat. these rodents will actually burn off their organs and die before they burn off fat.
Unbelievable, isn't it? But that's what happens. We're all walking around that way. It's very, very simple. If you want to talk about a simple equation, it is that insulin's the fat-making hormone. And if insulin's elevated, it will shut down your ability to burn fat because you're not going to be in fat-making mode and fat-burning mode at the same time. And everybody that's got a metabolic hormonal condition that's causing weight gain has elevated insulin levels because they have insulin resistance. And so they have shut down, even if there's a little bit of extra insulin in your body, you have shut down the ability to burn fat. Plain and simple. You've got to address that on a cellular, hormonal level, which is exactly what you're talking about here, and then it all happens. I'm living proof of it. The people we work with are living proof of it, and it's just really that simple. So I'm wondering what's the best way for us? People are listening. They want to connect with you. They want to see some of the research because your research is in the book is absolutely fabulous. And it's really to me it's really life affirming stuff because they have to deal with their doctors, right? And to me it's irresponsible, almost bordering on criminal that with all the research that's out there to support the fact that it's a hormonal condition that causes us to gain weight, not calories in, calories out. That the mainstream medical paradigm is still saying just eat less. So these people, they need that research. They actually need to go to their doctor and educate them. And what I've learned is they're not teaching this stuff in medical school, which makes no sense at all. But these people are going to their doctor. The doctor's saying that's a bunch of hoo-ha, just eat less, you're just weak. I bet you if you wrote down everything you ate, you would be surprised how much you eat. They need this research. So what's the best way for us to connect with you and get into some of this work that you've been doing?
Please hop over to Sane Solution. So that's SANE solution.com. We've got a massive amount of free tools up there for you and are really building an entire comprehensive system to hopefully someday go head to head with Weight Watchers, where they provide a bunch of tools to help you eat less and count your calories. We're going to provide a bunch of tools and systems and have some patents in the work to provide you with easy ways to increase the quality of what you're eating and heal your body rather than to starve it.
Awesome. Jonathan, I love the work that you're doing. I love the fact that this is everything that we've been talking about, but you've taken it to another level with the depth of research that you've done. And I loved your book in that regard. There's just hundreds and hundreds of really awesome studies there. I think it's a library of anecdotal and scientific research that proves that the old calories in, calorie out model is totally flawed and antiquated, and so the work you're doing is really important. So thanks very much for taking the time to share your knowledge with us and doing what you're doing in the world.
Oh, thank you, John. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay, thanks everyone for listening. So this idea of calories in, calories out is what we've been taught to believe for years and years. It's just flawed, and the work that Jonathan Bailor is doing is cracking that wide open. So definitely check out his site, Sane Solution, read the research, connect with him. I'm sure you're going to love it, and I look forward to speaking with you real soon. Take care.